Today, we're diving into a topic that affects all of us but often flies under the radar: the impact of climate change on global security. As the planet heats up and weather patterns shift dramatically, political and social tensions rise as well. But how exactly does this influence security around the world? That's what we're going to explore today. If you're curious about how climate changes are shaping conflicts, mass migrations, and even the future of global peace, stay with us. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give us a like, and drop a comment below about what you think of this urgent topic. Let's dive into this analysis together. Climate change is quickly becoming one of the biggest factors influencing international conflicts. Rising temperatures and the scarcity of natural resources like water and food are intensifying tensions between nations that are competing for survival and stability. These issues are creating an unstable environment that directly impacts global security, as the lack of essential resources can trigger territorial disputes, wars, and humanitarian crises. Additionally, countries with fewer resources and weaker infrastructures face even greater challenges, becoming more vulnerable to natural disasters and climate-related crises. This not only damages their economies, but also worsens poverty, increases the number of refugees, and creates political instability. The competition for essential resources is increasingly becoming a matter of life and death, and the world's most powerful nations are aware that this could impact their long-term national security. As these conflicts emerge, the role of major powers becomes critical. They find themselves having to intervene, whether through humanitarian aid, peace negotiations, or, in more extreme cases, military involvement. In this context, the balance between power, diplomacy, and natural resources becomes more complex, creating a web of tensions that few countries can afford to ignore. One of the most visible effects of climate change is the rise in mass migrations. When entire regions become uninhabitable due to prolonged droughts, floods, or rising sea levels, millions of people are forced to leave their homes in search of better living conditions. These migrations create complex humanitarian crises and destabilize the countries receiving large numbers of refugees, challenging their capacity to provide security and accommodation. Imagine a coastal city being swallowed by the ocean, or a rural village where farming is no longer viable. People simply have no choice but to leave. And this doesn't just affect the regions directly hit by the climate. The receiving countries also face enormous pressures, both economic and social, as they try to absorb these new populations. The competition for jobs, housing, and basic services creates an environment of tension and sometimes violence. Moreover, these migratory flows tend to impact global politics. Developed countries face the dilemma of how to handle climate migrations, as it also influences their own security policies. In the long run, finding solutions to this issue will be one of the greatest challenges the world faces because, unlike other crises, climate change is not going away anytime soon. As climate change continues to impact the planet, the competition for natural resources is becoming one of the greatest threats to global security. Arable land is becoming increasingly scarce and access to fresh water is rapidly declining. This scenario is creating an environment of growing rivalry between countries and even within national borders. Governments are forced to deal with the redistribution of scarce resources, which often leads to internal and external conflicts. What used to be a quiet dispute for strategic resources is now becoming more visible and aggressive. With some regions becoming desertified and food supplies dwindling, the survival of entire populations is at risk. Countries that once maintained peaceful relations may find themselves entangled in tensions over something as simple as water access. Wealthier nations are scrambling to secure their stockpiles, while poorer ones struggle to survive in an increasingly unequal world. These disputes over resources are leading to new types of global alliances, often based on the ability to ensure food and water security. World powers, in turn, are beginning to view environmental management as a matter of national security. In this context, geopolitics and ecology intersect, creating a scenario where control over resources can determine a nation's stability. As climate change intensifies, the military forces of various countries are increasingly being called upon to deal with the consequences of this phenomenon, whether it's helping evacuate populations from areas hit by natural disasters or protecting critical infrastructure like water reservoirs and power plants. The military is becoming a vital part of the response to climate crises. However, this new reality also presents strategic and logistical challenges. In fact, many armies are now factoring climate change into their defense strategies. Military bases must be prepared to withstand natural disasters, and armed forces need to develop rapid response capabilities for catastrophes. The militarization of climate response also raises questions about how far armies can go in peacetime to ensure security in an unstable environment. These new responsibilities are changing the very nature of the military, which is no longer just focused on conflicts between nations. The concept of national security now includes protection against the effects of climate change, and the military is on the front lines of this new era of global challenges. At the same time, the political implications of military involvement in climate issues are beginning to emerge, further complicating the global landscape. Climate change is no longer a distant concern. It's shaping the future of global security in ways we're only beginning to understand. From resource conflicts to mass migration and military involvement, the impact of these changes is already transforming the geopolitical landscape. As the world adapts to this new reality, global security is being redefined through a climate-focused lens. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to the channel to keep up with more content like this. The future of global security hinges on how we tackle climate challenges, and this discussion is just getting started.